All right. Our 11 a.m. time certain is part two of a series being put on by our clerk recorder, Michelle Asuncion. So this is a receive and file, a presentation regarding the upcoming statewide presidential primary election cycle. Election Education Series, Part 2, Voter Registration and Primary Election Voting. Good morning to Mrs. Asuncion. Good afternoon, I mean.
Yeah, good
Supposed to be
day.
morning. Supposed to be morning.
Right. All right. Well, good day indeed. Board of Supervisors, Mr. Berg, Dr. Johnson, Ms. North, Ventura County staff and community. I'm just gonna, oh, it doesn't move. Okay, I'm just gonna kind of. Michelle Asuncion, County Clerk Recorder and Registrar of Voters. I'm pleased to continue our 2023-24 Election Education Series today with Part 2, Voter Registration and Primary Election Voting. I hope everyone that is tuning in to the election series is finding it informative and enlightening. Anyone who missed the previous session on candidates and campaigns can visit the elections website, venturavote.org, to find video along with FAQs and helpful links for more information. We've timed the topics of the presentations to coincide with where we are in the election cycle. It's hard to believe that the March 5th primary is a mere 119 days away, but who's counting? Which is why today's topic is quite timely, as voter registration status is going to be of particular importance in the upcoming primary election. We're going to start today with some basics about voter registration in the state of California. And I figured an easy way to present this information would be to break it down in a who, what, where, when, why, how format. So we'll start off with the who question. Who can register to vote? Well, in a nutshell, to register to vote, you must be 1, a U.S. citizen and a resident of the state, 2, 18 years or older on election day, 3, not currently serving a state or federal prison term for the conviction of a felony, and 4, not currently found mentally incompetent to vote by a court. And we're going to expand on some of these. Resident of California, basically someone who lives here, right? But considering the following very common scenarios. Suppose someone is from here, but they're in the military and stationed in another state, or they're away at college out of state. The opposite is also quite common. Military personnel and college students come from out of state and are here in California on a temporary basis. Where would they register to vote? A person in this situation will need to choose where they want to be registered, either at their permanent address or at the address where they currently live. Either one is acceptable, but they do have to make a choice, as a person cannot vote more than once in an election. People from the state of California who are working or studying abroad can maintain their state residency and continue to vote in elections by absentee ballot. Now, what if someone is homeless or unhoused or doesn't have a fixed address? Can they register to vote? The answer is yes, but I'm going to get into that a little bit later on in the presentation. The bottom line is a voter can only have one legal voting residence at a time. So you have to be 18 years or older to be able to register to vote here in California. Well, I'd like to introduce one of California's soon-to-be newest voters. This is my daughter, Bethany, who turned 18 last month. And I told her I had a surprise for her birthday, and I presented her with her very first voter registration card. I mean, it has to be pretty cool to see your mom's name imprinted as the Registrar of Voters, right? And you can see how thrilled she is. In addition, 16 and 17-year-olds in California can pre-register to vote. So when they turn 18, they'll become fully registered voters automatically, giving them one less thing to think about for that big birthday. Next, we're going to answer the when question. When do you register or re-register to vote? You'll register for the first time when you're at least 18 years old, assuming you haven't already pre-registered, or if you've just moved to California, or just received your U.S. citizenship. You'll re-register if you need to change your name, or you've moved to a new address, or have been released from custody and you want to restore your voting rights, or particularly for this upcoming election, if you want to change your political party, and we're going to talk more about that later too. But think of re-registration as you're updating information on your existing voter registration. As far as timing, people can register to vote anytime, but ideally, they will register as early as possible before an election. This will ensure that their registration gets fully completed before the election, and they can receive information from our office without delay, including notification cards, their voter information guide, and their vote-by-mail ballot. The Elections Code does establish a registration deadline of 15 days before the election, but not to worry if you miss it. You can simply come to the elections office or go to any vote center, even through Election Day, and you can receive a conditional voter registration ballot, which is also called a same-day registration ballot. But it's always better not to wait until the last minute. So next we're going to answer the where and how questions together. Where and how can you register to vote? There are many methods for registration, both old school and new. You can use a paper registration form, that long form that can be found at most public service offices, including here at the Ventura County Government Center, or your local city hall, or libraries and post offices. Fill that out and drop it in the mail, postage free. Or you can register the next time you go to the DMV. Thanks to the motor voter law, if you visit the DMV to apply for a driver's license, a state ID card, or to change your address, you can register to vote at the same time. There's also a third option. You can register online from your phone, laptop, or other device using registertovote.ca.gov. Now the what question. What information will a person need to provide when registering to vote? Whether you fill out a paper form or use online registration, you'll need to basically provide the same information. First, you'll fill in some fields to provide your identification information. That's your full name, your driver's license or state ID card number, and the last 4 digits of your social security number, and the date of your birth along with the country or state of your birth. I want to offer a quick side note on that. If a person doesn't provide their license ID or social security number when registering, they will be notified that they need to show identification the first time they vote. Acceptable forms of identification include a passport, a student ID, proof of new citizenship information, a recent utility bill, or a document received from a government agency. The voter will need to bring it with them when they vote in person, or include a copy of the documentation with their vote-by-mail ballot. If you need more information on this, please visit our website or call our office. Okay, so going back to the form, next you'll need your current home address. Why is this needed? Because the address where you live determines who your elected representatives are, and therefore which contests should appear on your ballot at election time. Addresses that all share the same district or area boundaries can form what's called a precinct. Your precinct is what determines the particular mix of contests on your ballot due to your home's location. Now, you can use your home address only or provide a different mailing address for us to send your voting materials. A P.O. box is acceptable as a mailing address, but it cannot be used as your residential address. It must be your home address. And taking another detour here, this is where we will continue the previous discussion on registering voters who are unhoused. Remember, all eligible voters have the right to vote, including a person who is experiencing homelessness. But we just said that in order to register, someone needs to have at least a home address and optionally a mailing address. So how is that going to work here? Well, to register someone in this situation, for their home address, they'll need to provide some kind of location information where they can be properly assigned to a voting precinct. So this address would be the location where they spend the most of their time. For example, a shelter or a parking lot where they may be commonly parked, an intersection, or a landmark, even a business if that is where they are considered to reside. With that location information, we can assign them to the appropriate voting precinct, and that way they can receive the corresponding ballot just like a voter with a fixed address. If someone was already registered to vote, then under California law, they do not lose their voting home address until they gain a new residence. So when you move from one fixed address to another, the registration address is pretty obvious. But for someone who is homeless or living on the open road in an RV, or say lost their home in a disaster and are staying in temporary housing, until they obtain a new fixed address where they intend to stay, they can use their previous home address for voter registration purposes. The mailing address part is a little easier for someone experiencing homelessness, as that can be the address of a family member or friend or social service agency that's willing to accept mail on their behalf, or even that P.O. box that we mentioned earlier. Whether you're unhoused or settled, it's important for everyone to keep their voter registration up to date anytime their information changes. Okay, now we're going back to the registration form again. Other information you'll provide includes your name and address of any previous voter registration, your choice of a political party or selection of no party preference, and optional information such as email, phone number, language, or ethnicity. Finally, to complete your registration, you're going to attest that the information you provide is true and correct under penalty of perjury, and with your signature and date on the paper form or digital signature if you're online or at the DMV. If anything is missing from your registration application or if more information is needed to confirm your eligibility, the elections office will contact you by mail. We will also notify you once your registration is completed. Okay, finally we get to the last question, why? Why is voter registration done this way? The answer is VoteCal, the state of California's centralized voter registration database. VoteCal maintains all of the voter registration, precinct, and election information for all 58 California counties. Each county has access to its portion of VoteCal data through a secure information management portal. This allows us to ensure our registration lists are up to date and accurate. We can place voters into election precincts, port a voter's record to another county if they move, establish election precincts, provide data for mailing voter guides and ballots, and the best part is with a centralized data system, we can ensure that people are not registering in multiple counties or voting multiple times. VoteCal improves election security by comparing registration information against the DMV, Social Security, Department of Corrections, Public Health, the EDD, U.S. Postal Service, and other services to ensure addresses are up to date, deceased voters are removed, and it retains signatures for vote-by-mail comparisons. Voters can access the public portions of VoteCal in order to register to vote, find a voting location in their county, and track their ballot to check the status of their provisional ballot. You can even check your voter registration information to ensure it's up to date at the VoteCal portal, voterstatus.sos.ca.gov. So speaking of verifying your registration information, this is the perfect segue into our second topic of the day, primary election voting. I'm going to explain why it's important for everyone to be sure they know their registration status for the upcoming presidential primary on March the 5th. In the October presentation, I mentioned the various offices up for election this March: Congress, supervisors, judges, but the big one that we're going to focus on today is the U.S. presidential contest. Now, in California, most offices are voted on by all voters regardless of party registration, even in primary elections. But there are two types of offices that are specifically party nominated: the county central committees, who are the officers of the local political parties, and the office of U.S. President. Because the presidential contest is party nominated, only voters registered in that political party will be voting on that party's slate of presidential candidates in March. So to put it simply, if you registered as a Democrat, you will have the Democratic candidates for president to pick from for your vote. Likewise, registered Republicans have the Republican presidential candidates listed on their ballot. Voters registered as Peace and Freedom will vote for the Peace and Freedom presidential candidates, and so on. This leads to the question, what does the party-nominated presidential office mean for the nearly 105,000 Ventura County voters who are registered as no party preference? Historically, they've been referred to as independent or nonpartisan or declined to state. And I have to admit, declined to state kind of makes me chuckle a little bit because I just picture someone with their arms folded and stubbornly refusing. I'm not going to tell you my registration, which is maybe why they've kind of changed it to no party preference. It sounds a little less standoffish. Anyway, NPPs now account for 20% of registrations in our county. That is not an insignificant number. So chances are high that a good number of people tuning in are either no party preference or they know someone who is. That being the case, I need everyone to please listen to the following explanation. The statewide political parties have a choice with regards to no party preference voters and the upcoming presidential primary. They could either keep their presidential contest as a closed primary, meaning only Dems vote for Dems, Green votes for Green, etc., or allow a modified closed primary, which permits the no party preference voters to request that party's ballot so they can vote for a candidate in the presidential primary. Of the 6 recognized parties in California, 3 chose to keep their presidential primary closed. Those were the Green, the Peace and Freedom, and the Republican parties. The 3 other parties opted to allow the modified closed presidential primary, which were the American Independent, Democratic, and Libertarian parties. This means that no party preference voters can participate in these parties' presidential primaries, a process known as crossover voting for short. So this month, all no party preference registered voters will receive a postcard mailing from our office, which will explain the whole situation and what the voter needs to do if they want to vote for president in the primary. To vote for American Independent, Democratic, or Libertarian presidential ballot, the NPP voter can fill out the reply form on the postcard, selecting their choice, and mail it back to our office. But if you want to vote in the Green Party, Peace and Freedom, or Republican Party presidential contest, you'll need to re-register in that party to receive that ballot. Again, re-registration is as easy as completing the paper form or going online at registertovote.ca.gov. And if you're re-registering, you don't have to return the postcard, just re-register. We ask that the NPPs making a choice do so as soon as possible, but no later than December 29th. Your speedy response will ensure that we can send your crossover or new party voter guide and vote by mail ballot during the drops in late January and early February. If we can get it right with that first batch of mailings, it saves the cost of a duplicate mailing, especially when you're talking about sending up to 20% more pieces of mail. NPPs can also visit any vote center in the county once they open on February 24th to request a crossover ballot or re-register, or they can visit our office at the government center anytime. So now to answer a few frequently asked questions about this no party preference thing. Question 1, if a no party preference voter does not request a crossover ballot or re-register with a party, what happens? The answer is honestly not much. The NPPs can still vote for Senate, Congress, state offices, county offices, ballot measures. There's simply no presidential contest that will appear on your NPP ballot. Question 2, does requesting or voting on a crossover ballot change my party registration? The answer is no, you're still registered, no party preference. Question 3, if I don't see the presidential candidate that I want, can I just write them in? The answer is people who watched our last presentation know that the answer to this is no. Remember that the only names that are valid as write-ins are those who have qualified as write-ins. So candidates who are listed on a ballot, they are not write-ins. There will be lists of qualified write-ins on the Secretary of State's website, our website, and at each voting center. Next, if I re-register in a party, can I go back to no party preference? Yes, you can. You sure can. As soon as the day after the election, if you want to. Party registration or lack thereof has no impact on your ability to participate in any elections other than the presidential primary. Finally, if a voter does not vote in the primary election, will they be able to vote in the general election? The answer is absolutely. Skipping the primary election does not disqualify you from voting in the general election. That's assuming all things being equal, of course, like you don't go to prison or something. All right, so I have some homework for you. I need everyone to go, please, to voter status at voterstatus.sos.ca.gov, or call the voter hotline, which I apologize is not on the slide, but it's 800-345-VOTE. Make sure that your registration is correct, particularly your political party registration. If it's not, well, now you know what you need to do, right? I can't tell you how many people have sworn to me that they've been a registered blank all their life, only to find out that after the last time they renewed their license at the DMV, they skipped through the registration screen like most people skip through the terms and conditions on their phone update. And by not selecting a political party, they inadvertently, by default, became a no party preference registrant. Then I need you to tell your family and friends to do the same. Okay? Okay. So that concludes this presentation on voter registration and primary election voting. Again, it's merely scratching the surface of these meaty subjects, but I could be up here all day if I told you more, and I'm going to spare you. But in the case that you really want to see this presentation again, we should have the video and the information page live on the venturavote.org website by the end of this week. This topic gives me an opportunity to brag on our hardworking voter registration team. With over 500,000 registered voters in this county, these folks work really hard to make sure thousands of updates every day of first-time registrations, deaths, people moving in the county, out of the county, within the county, making corrections, fixing duplications, and so on and so on. It is literally a never-ending task. So we have in the photo the section supervisor, Myra, on the left. Next to her, Jessica, Alicia, Agnes, and Ashley. They're so dedicated and incredibly patient, and we appreciate everything they do to our voters because it all starts with registration. Check out our social media channels at VC Clerk Recorder. I won't be back until January 23rd with part 3, vote centers and vote by mail. So until then, happy holidays. Thank you for your time this afternoon, I guess. And I'll be happy to take your questions. Thank you.
Well, Ms. Asensio, thank you so much for both yours and your team's professionalism and expertise. It's always good to get these updates, and we'll look forward.